أكفره وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أرسله بالهدى ودين الحق ليظهره على الدين كله ولو كره المشركون. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek His help, His assistance, and His guidance. We believe in Him and do not disbelieve in Him. I bear witness that there is no God but Allah, and Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and messenger. Allah sent him, that is Muhammad, with Deen al-Haq, the religion, the way, the methodology of truth, and this way of life known as Islam will rise to its proper position in this world, whether the mushriks like it or not. Amma ba'd, فإن أصدق الحديث كتاب الله وأوثق الأمور كلمة التقوى وخير الملال ملة إبراهيم وخير السنن سنة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. We'd like to begin with Al-Bayan. This is what we distributed for one of our unity meetings at UC Berkeley, Al-Bayan. Wahda Conference and its schedule. UC Berkeley Muslim Students publication, February 1997. I brought this because this is kind of indicative of what we was about at that particular time. Remember, a movement means that there is movement. And a movement means that you're moving. Now, you may look at us now and say, we're not moving. That's the farthest from the truth you can get. We are a movement now, we were a movement then, and we hope to continue to be a movement because a movement has certain characteristics. One, that it has leadership, it has people, it has usually goals and directives and places they want to go and things they want to do. So this is Al-Bayan, Wahda Conference, and our most famous ayat, one of them. And hold fast all together to the rope of Allah, and be not divided amongst yourselves, and remember Allah's favor on you, for you were enemies one to another. But He joined your hearts together, so that by His grace you became brethren. And you were on the brink, the pit of fire, and He saved you from it. Thus Allah makes His verses clear to you that you may be guided. Of course, we say this every Jummah, وَاتَّصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. And this Wahda or unity meeting has certain characteristics. Of course, this is Friday, February 21st, 1997, and it's at UC Berkeley, and it'll be a pre-program. It starts on Jummah, and it has registration. The khutbah will be given by Dr. Hamid Algar. Then one of the main lectures that night at 7:30 p.m. will be a lecture, Malcolm X, Examples of Activism and Empowerment, by Imam Musa and Muhammad Abdullah. It'll be at the Science Building. Okay, that means that night the main lecture would be Malcolm X. That means an example of activism and empowerment. And of course, myself and Muhammad Abdullah. Muhammad Abdullah is from LA. He's active for generations. And so we spoke together. And now, of course, the khutbah was given by Dr. Hamid Algar. Does anybody know who Dr. Algar was? Dr. Algar is a European. When I first came home from the penitentiary in '76, I wanted to meet all the Muslims. And now, of course, I was right there in Oakland next to Berkeley. And so Berkeley was a hub at that time as it is now. And so I went around I was in what we call at that time the World Community of Islam in the West, which was Imam Muwattadin Muhammad's community. But it hadn't opened up yet. It was still in a transition. So to visit all the Muslims was new. Now I'm coming out of the penitentiary and I'm just juiced up with Islam, so I want to meet all the Muslims. It just so happens that Berkeley, right next to Oakland, was a wonderful place to get indoctrinated to Islam. So not only whether it was the Nation of Islam, whatever it was, but it was a good area for Islam. So anyway, I went out to Berkeley and to find some of the Muslims. And I found a good group of Muslims, some Sufi, all kind of Muslims. And that was in '76. Now in '76, of course, they had Salatul Juma there. And UC Berkeley had a multiplex of Muslims. It was all kind of Muslims. So I would go over there sometime to meet the various Muslims. I would also go to the Islamic Center way over in San Francisco. Islamic Center was at that time the only masjid in the Bay Area, or in my part of the Bay Area, where there were so-called Sunni Muslims, and it was a nice large group, you know. San Jose had another group, but all the masajid in those days were like, they were nothing like they are now. This would have been the biggest masjid in the United States, probably. Easy. Well, because it's bigger than the Islamic Center over there. The Islamic Center is more orientated, but when you come in here, you got room. So technically, probably, yeah, at this time, this would have been easily the biggest, except one or two places. But now, to get back to where we were heading here, that was a wonderful time for Islam in America. There was a few national African American Islamic groups. Of course, there was the Dar al-Islam movement in New York. There was the Islamic Party right here in DC. And there was Imam Muwattadin Muhammad, the World Community of Islam in the West, as we called it at that time. It was also, at that time, Imam Muhammad's community was not mixing a lot. We was just coming out of the Nation of Islam, and the newspaper at that time had a transitional status. You could see that it was moving from one place to another. But for Islam, it was a wonderful period, because for us, it was coming into something almost new. The whole idea of being in the past, black man is God, white man is the devil, that type of thing. We're coming into a new global acceptance of Islam. When I got out of Leavenworth, I came out with that openness. When I got to the masjid in Oakland, everybody was still locked in the past. Man, I would go over to the Islamic Center in San Francisco, and a load of new books that came. One of the parents from Pakistan had bought a whole ton of Islamic books, Maulana Maududi and all of those wonderful books on Islam to help her son stay in Islam. That's what she had bought it for. But she donated to the group, and the books were there free for everybody, and nobody wanted them. I looked at all them books, and I got a stack of them myself, and then I got a whole bunch of them for the masjid. When I got to the masjid with all those books, Fahim Shuaib told me, he said, I have to check with the chief on all of these books, just so he could go through them and see what they. I said, fine. It was probably years before they got distributed. He might have read them all himself, right. But he didn't let them out, because remember, we're in transition. 76, Elijah Muhammad then died the year before, maybe 74 in the 70s. Was it the winter of 74? Yeah. So he had passed away, 74, 75, and the community was going through transition, our community. By 76, it was still in the middle of the early stages of moving from the black man as God, the white man as the devil, to the Sunnah. Well, now we're praying and we're doing all of that, but most of the people don't know how to pray. Prayer, 5 daily prayers, all that, standing up and sitting down and all that stuff, So anyway, let me pick it up. So now, by 1997, we're having a program in Berkeley, UC Berkeley. I want you to imagine UC Berkeley was a hub of rebellion in the 1960s, and it was a hub of Islam in the 1990s, 80s, 90s, and on up. So the next day, February 22nd, at 9 a.m., opening comments and lecture by Imam Musa. So now you got to remember, we're having a program there, and all of our West Coast affiliates are there. So this is a program with 1,000 people easy. I mean, it's just packed with mostly it's Muslim students. Of course, a lot of black people too from the area, but this is a movement on wahda, on unity. This was the call. Actually, it was coming out of Iran. Wahda, unity, And so that night we have a lecture by Mahmoud Abdul Rauf. His is at 7:30. Then the next day, the 23rd, which would be Saturday, and this was a standard outline of many programs in those days. It starts on Friday, maybe a Jummah, then you have Saturday, the main day, and then you have a Sunday, and it's trickling off. It's a wrap-up. All day Sunday is usually like final session, summary from different workshops and what have you. This was from our Unity Conference in 1997. So technically I want to start now from one of our As-Sabiqun, As-Sabiqun on the Move. This is our newsletter, and what I'm going to recommend is that we got a whole stack of newsletters from 1995 up until 2000. Maybe the last one is 13, but this 10 and 12, and it's only a few at that time. We were just wrapping up that period. That's a good period for Islamic movement. Now we're going to talk about some of the This is 1996. And by 1996, I had been here 6, 7 years technically, because I came here in '89. So this is, now, what we had, this is from As-Sabiqun, one of our training outlines, which is talking about 4 stages of growth for the Islamic movement. The first stage is masjid. When you establish yourself in an area, the first thing that a Muslim should be on their schedule is a masjid, a place for people to go. Now, like right now, you would think that's natural, but at that time, going backwards from here, it was people prayed in houses. They had Salatul Jummah in apartments. This masajid all over America is a big deal. On most university campuses, sometimes they prayed in the basement of a chapel. We might have a big floor down in the chapel, and we covered little crosses and stuff or what have you. And probably on the universities, at least 80% were in the 80s and 90s. 80% of them was probably in chapels and down at the bottom. Or we was just growing out of the stage of apartments and houses that were rented near the campus, and that was the masjid. That was the masjid. That's at a pretty developing time. Now at every university, you have a masjid right there near the university. And believe it or not, most of the money we raised for our activities, a lot of it, was at those centers. Why? Because there was no board of directors. It was a good free period. It was a good Islamic flavor period. It's not like now, you can go places you won't get an Islamic flavor at all. But right now, everybody, and they see African Americans, you a Muslim? Yes, I am. You know Al-Fatiha? Sure, I know Al-Fatiha, yeah. Then we would decide, my goodness. You got to remember, they're immigrant Muslims now. They didn't come here to establish no Islam, but they came here, their mothers and fathers told them to go to the little masjid, and around the country, everybody was going to the little masjid to pray. And as time went on, those little masajid around the universities began to grow, and they bought land, and they got a house, and they got an apartment, and they had Salatul Jummah. And around the universities every day, everybody would go for Salatul Jummah, they would go for the 5 daily prayers, and that was mostly around the universities. At our masajid in the African American neighborhood, we were just getting that thing of going to pray all day and every day. We were still just, technically, at this time we had learned how to pray. Yeah, in 97, we was on a roll by then. Many immigrants were mixing with African Americans in their masajid, and you could tell that when you would first go to our masajid in the 80s and the 90s, you didn't see Astinja bottles, because nobody cared nothing about a Astinja. Just made wudu was just, wudu. And so, as time went on, you could tell little things about that. By the 90s and the 2000s, you're finding Astinja bottles in all of our centers. Black centers. Of course, they're in all the immigrant masajid. Okay, that was a good period of uncontrolled growth and friendly development of Islam. In other words, like we could go, all the money we raised for our centers, like in Oakland and all that, we had money put aside, but we could go, we jumped in a car and went up. First we stopped at Eugene, Oregon. Then we raised I don't know how many thousands of dollars. Then we got in the car and went up to Corvallis, Oregon. Remember, these are all universities, close to universities. And we raised more money. We went up to Seattle, and these are immigrant mosques on the West Coast. We raised money, and then we'd come back. Because, see, we didn't go to any African American centers because they were all under Imam Muhyiddin Muhammad. And the brothers felt that they needed all of their money, and they wasn't going to give any money to other Negroes because they're not with the chief. That was the feeling. So, I mean, we'd go, just imagine the feeling. You go and you could go to the masjid, for instance, in Texas, 1901 Noosa Street. Then we went to that masjid, and the doors were locked and everything. It was around 1 or 2 in the morning, and we'd been on the highway all that time. My son and a couple of more brothers. Shoot, we just climbed in the windows and went in. That's the way it was in those days. We climbed in the windows and went to sleep. And the people got there at Fajr time. Oh, salam alaikum, and da 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 da. We got up, made wudu, made prayer, and went back to sleep. And at Jummah time, we just talked. You didn't have to get no security from the big sheikh or the imam. You said, oh, we're from California. We're raising money for our masjid. We would like to make an announcement. Sure. So after Jummah, we make an announcement, and we may raise $500, $1,000, or something like that. Now, in those days, that was a lot of money. Plus, we didn't have outgo like we do now. We got expenses now. We didn't have everything we raised. All we had to do was pay our gas money, and we didn't have hotels because we stayed in the masjid or slept in the car. We went all around the country several times on trips like that, raising money for brothers that had got strong murder cases or something like that, and they needed help. We raised money, and also it was a time when I knew literally where almost every masjid in the United States was, because I would travel to all of them, all the universities, it was a good experience. It helped us be in touch with the Muslims, and it was in a period when it was still open and friendly. And the immigrants, when they saw a Muslim from us, I'm telling you, that joke about Al-Fatiha, do you know Al-Fatiha? Of course I know Al-Fatiha. We play with them, just messing around, Yeah, then, it was a wonderful period. It was a good, healthy period. This program is not at the end but this is the height of the mixture and blending of Muslim groups and organizations. Because remember, we are As-Sabiqun. We are an African American led Muslim group and organization. But the people who are part of this As-Sabiqun are mostly, I don't know if you've seen many of the pictures, but they're mostly immigrants and immigrants' children. Yeah, there's tons of them. I mean, it was thousands. I mean, when we would have a program like this, those auditoriums and what have you would be full. Okay, a lot of people believe that was a good point and that was a high point. That was a good point, and I'll talk about that period. That period was a special period. But here's what As-Sabiqun al-Awwalun was about. Our concerns are presently focused on four main areas: masjid, schools, businesses, and geographical integrity. So the masjid, when we first came here, the masjid was over on 8th Street. And that place was just packed with people. That's where we wrote this article from over there. This was, yes, 96, definitely. We was over there, and you wouldn't believe how everybody was coming out. I mean, it was unbelievable. It was really a good, so anyway. So the masjid is a place for ethical training, moral training, building Islamic character and what have you. And that's the purpose of the masjid. Also, it brings the Muslims together 5 times a day. That in itself is a very big and important thing, that 5 times a day, you and other people like you get together. Or some make it twice a day, some make it, but you're going to have the prayer 5 times a day at that masjid. That is the first step of Islamic movement, having a place that brings the people together on a regular basis. And then there you have classes. You're talking about classes. It's going to take a long time to get back to classes. This is dynamite and as helpful as those classes was. Remember, now, nobody has to get depressed, because remember, the Islamic movement goes through ebbs and flows. That was an ebb at that time, and the flow, it served its purpose at that time. Okay, then schools. You might have heard about how good the school here was, Masjid al-Islam School. I would say it's the best. All of our children go to the, have you heard it? All of our children go to the best universities in the country.
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
Yeah.
That's what I've heard as well.
Yeah, all of the kids, all our kids, and talking about D.C., I know my children, when they went to the public school, they was 2 years ahead, at least, on everything, because we used that homeschooling thing, but we taught it in a classroom environment. It was wonderful. I mean, our children were a minimum of 2 years ahead of everybody, because that homeschooling program, I mean, it was questions on there for the 5th graders that I had to think about. I knew them because I studied, but didn't nobody else know the answers to those questions when they asked? No, I wouldn't think nobody knew them. But our 5th graders had them, and it proves that by how they all eased into their school. When we closed our school down, when those children went to those outside schools in D.C., they said, we had this stuff 2 years ago, 3 years ago. They were just so far ahead, and we were happy about it. But masjid, schools. So our main school was here and in Oakland. I think Oakland had a bigger school. Okay, businesses. Of course, bookstore and all that selling. We made a lot of money by going to programs and taking books. And remember, at that time, we had a low overhead. So we went and sold $4,000 worth of books. That was except for what we paid for them. And we hustled books too. If we went in a big Muslim distributing place that's distributing Qurans and everything, we all, of course, people that are going to be our friend would say, hey, man, a few boxes of them boys. So they'll give us 4 or 5 boxes of Yusuf Ali, the green, nice, So, and we give everybody a break. We sell them for $8 or $10 at that time, and we got them free. Or we helped them distribute some of the other stuff that they had free, It was all kind of ways. We had a real lively, we used to go to every, when ISNA and ICNA and all the other big groups would have their holiday extravaganzas, we would call them that, but this was before the internet and all of that, So people bought books, and they bought a lot of books. I mean, they would buy a lot of books, and we would have a lot. It was unbelievable. As small as we were, I don't know if you remember how Halalco was. See, here's what we said. When I came here, I said, what's the baddest book shop and everything in D.C.? They took me over to Halalco. I said, man, this is deep. I said, we're going to catch them. So not surpass them, which we did. Or the people didn't know we had surpassed them, but we had. And we traded books, and we had good relation. So that was the goal. Okay, when you go somewhere, who's the baddest guy in town? Well, they are. Well, we want to be at least that good. That's a good way to, who has the best bicycle shop in town? Oh, they have it over there. Well, we're going to get equal or better than them. Success is automatic because you're going to get big as them or better than them. You can't lose. You got something to look at. That's the way we did in D.C. Now, at that time, with book distribution, with all those things, came programs and getting to know everybody and meeting everybody, and it was a wonderful period. This period right here, 97. But we'd been doing that. When we got here, we brought books with. I'll tell you how I got to D.C. We had a program up in Canada. I took tons of books to the program in Canada. I think I sold $1,800 worth of books at the program in Canada. That was in 89. Because I got here on June 23rd or something like that, of 89. Then we had our Jumas over on 16th Street. It was closing down, and it's a long story, but we had our Juma over there. We knew the owner, and we had it there for a few months, Masjid al-Islam. And we would go selling books from here. They have a program. See, you would look everywhere and you say, oh, they're having a program at such and such a place. So you go over there and you set up your books. You either rent a book stall, right? If they doing that, if they're not doing that, you just set up books anyway. Yeah, and then you got to remember, everything is almost profit except what we pay for the books. And then our hustling books on the side. See, right now, if we sold $4,000 or $5,000 worth of books, it wouldn't be nothing. But if we sold $4,000 worth of books then, that was almost all profit. Except for we paid for, we ordered the books from Pakistan, they were relatively cheap, and we ordered a lot of them, and on and on and on, India and Pakistan. And so when we would go to these conferences, like ISNA conference and everything, we had all kind of schemes, but it all worked perfectly. For instance, we would get one table like this, just one table like this. That's what we would pay for. But in our stall, we would have another one of these tables going this way, and another one of the tables going this way, and another one going that way. And we'd have a little space where you could walk in right over here, right? So guess what? We'd have 4 tables. I'd bring the other tables with me, and we'd have, this is our front table, another table there. You got to imagine now how much money you're going to make. And we got so many books from so many different spots that we had friends in a lot of the book publishing places, this, that, and other. I'll give you an example. There's one book in Arabic, such and such, they sold it for, I think, $12. Or he sold it to other people for $12. I sold it on our table for $8. He sold it to other distributors for $12. In one of the programs they rolled over, this is in the 90s, I'm sure. Yeah, it was in the 90s. And I know all of these. Hey, man, how many of those you got? I said, I got a few. He said, I published that. I said, yeah, I know. He said, I sell it to dealers, book dealers like yourself, for $12. How can you sell it for $8? I said, well, don't worry about it. You want to buy something? I'll hook you up, $8, all you want. So, no, it's serious. They did that with many books. I don't know if you've ever seen this big encyclopedia of Islam, a big green encyclopedia. Yeah, it came out in '86. Oh, it's a wonderful book. That sold over at Halalco for $100. It sold at Halalco for $100. Okay, I must have had about at least 1,000 of them, something like that. So, when we would go to ISNA program, see, they would give their homeboys, they'd had a front table. When they open up the door, everybody run right there, and they would be selling. When you start off, the books are stacked up here. And by the time we leave, and I mean, they knocking over, and I used to tell them, y'all got to put some security on yourself. Because if I'm making $4,000 or $5,000, they're making $40,000, $50,000. Let's go on and say it like it is. They might have 25 tables. They're making a minimum of $50,000. A minimum, because once you get to counting books, you can count. The stack is this high. When we come in, now it's down here. Okay, and that's all 20 tables, or 25, right? Okay, so we got aware of, I didn't mean to go on this subject, but we got aware of where to get your table, how to, okay, when they open the doors, they got, they say location, location, location. Their friends are putting on a program. They know where the people are going to be. So they go and buy, they're going to have their bookstores, their friends with their books. They're going to be right, as soon as they open the doors at dinner, they're going to walk right out there. And they're going to buy tons of books. That's one of the reasons you go into the book program. Okay, when they go in for prayer, they're going to have the other homeboy, right over there where everybody, they're getting all the traffic. Now us, we're over, and you got to know where you're going to be at, where the traffic is. So I would go to ISNA in Indiana. I'd stop by there. So when y'all are doing the books, the tables, we starting, okay, we'll start today. And so here's the diagram. And So this is the dining, this is da. So we're gonna come through here. Okay, this is where we want our bookstore, where the people come by. Sometimes they mess with you and they stick you way over on the side. Okay, no problem. So here's what we would have to do. We had incomes of books, good books, by the boxes that we could buy it from different places. Maybe some Negroes worked in a book distributor. I don't know where it came from. But anyway, we would have tons of books. I would pay $25 or $30 for a box of books that have 72 Bible, Quran, and science. Maybe it has 52 or 72 in there. Okay, and the big people, they have to sell that for, at that time, $10, $50, $12, say. I could sell it for $8. I'd sell it for $8. And guess what? When everybody go around and look at books, some of them are gonna come to you last or down near last, but pretty soon, people are going to have a book that they paid $12 or $15 for, and they're going to come and they're going to see it on your table for $8. So here's what you do. Like the Jews, that people have sales. No, here's all you do. You have 5 or 6 books with a special price. A special price. It's a special price. And so they come and buy that book for $8, but they buy a whole other stack of books, right? That you got for a nice price. Your price is always better than the other people. Your price is always better than the other people. If they sell they used to sell those encyclopedias for $100. $100 a piece. At that time, that was a lot of money. I would start off selling them for $50, then I would cut it down to $40. The big shots would come over that printed the book. How do you sell that for, because, they had it printed, and that's a thick, sturdy, good book. How do you sell that? How much you sell that for? How many you want? Oh, you got 1,000? I say, yeah, I can give you 1,000 of them. They'd look all under there, and I would have 1,000 of those books. Those books, I said I'd give them to you for $25 a piece. That'd be $25,000. Okay, that's cheaper than they got it printed for. They sell the book for $100. They probably paid all shipping and everything a minimum of $45 or $50 per book, because they sending it to their distributor, like Halalco out there. They're sending it to him for $70 or $75 each, and he's selling them for $100 out there. And so, now you got to imagine, Yusuf Ali, the beautiful green, I don't know, $8 or $10, no more than $10. They sell them for $15, and because they buying them from certain sources. We buying them for Negroes that work in their places, which I don't know what they do, but we get a pretty reasonable deal. And then we had another thing. The Negroes that was getting all these books everywhere, they would have them all on the floor, a little U-Haul. And I would say, let me have them scraps. I call them scraps. And for years, I could just scrap all the books up. They just about brand new now. When I finish with them, you're gonna think they're new. or I got a spot on the table, I'm going to put those books, that's Bible, Quran, and Science, all those expensive books. Shoot, I have a special on them, and I got them free. Hey, man, I give you $10 a box for them scraps. I call them scraps. They're not scraps. They're books that fell out of boxes in their little U-Haul, and they didn't care about them. They didn't know. The guy, I won't tell you his name. He's still over at Masjid Muhammad. And he had a friend over there and out that way. They worked at a big book distributor. They'd load them U-Hauls up and they'd come to me. So I could get the green Yusuf Ali. I'd pay $2 each. Sure, all you got. Anything else? Then when I done bought them out, I said, man, let me get them scraps. So one day, the Negro, I said, let me get them scraps. He said, no, I sold them scraps. I made $400 in one day off those scraps. So my game was up, you know. Can you imagine in those days? I'm calling them scraps. Man, let me scrap them up. Hey, man, it was all, that's how we bought. You got to remember now how much stuff we have here. How much stuff we have here. You know, it said, but we bought all our houses, bought the masjid, we didn't get that much help from, we only got, and all of this stuff around here, we got one loan, which they turned it into a gift for maybe 80 or 100,000 or something like that. That's all. Everything else, we hustled it up ourselves. Everything, when we wanted to buy something, we hustled it up with books. The place over on 8th Street, there's a room over there that was full from the bottom to the top with books. And we had boxes all the way around, all full of books, everything. What I'm trying to say is, when we came to D.C., we came with something in mind. Within a year or two, we was up and running. It was running, and it was running more efficient and better than anybody was thinking about the Islamic movement here in D.C. When we got here, the movement was depressed. Well, first I'll finish a little bit. So masjid, schools, businesses, geographical integrity. You got to think of the vision now. You got to look right around here. Geographical integrity is living close to the masjid. Masjid, right? Masjid, property, other, da-da-da-da-da. Okay, don't worry. We're going to rehook this up. You know, come here in 2 years, this will be live. So don't worry about that. You know, because we've already done it. The stage we're doing right now, we're getting ready to go through a revival process. The revival is different than establishing Islam. Establishing what we have right here, we already have it. So all we have to do is keep it and get busy. So when we came here, there was certain things going on with D.C. D.C. had been through a period, we call it the 3 Ds: disillusionment, discouragement, and disunity. D.C. was full of, it was sad. The Islamic movement had lost all of its punch and energy. And people was just, it was almost like sleepwalking. It was sad here. I'm telling you, it was just sad. So it was disillusionment. Now you got to remember, this is the capital, Washington, D.C. And where are they going to have most of the government agents? Right in D.C. When we came from California, we established out there first. But we had traveled all around the United States over and over and over again. We had been to all the universities, all the masajid. You know, that's how I learned how to country. I don't even have to have a map. I can just tell me where the city is, and I can just jump in the car and head on out. But I do take a map. Now you don't even need a map. You just have this doggone stuff. I don't even like them. I don't even use this little go down here and turn to the what's the name. Remember, you got to remember this first period of Islamic development. We traveled all over the United States to most of the universities. We gave lectures and talks all the time. Okay. At the same time, we're building up our own community. But when we was in Oakland, which we still are, sometime I would leave the masjid and I would lock it up and leave. And when I came back, I had to open it up to air out because, number one, it wasn't too many people coming there. And number two, I'd have a schedule of lectures which I would drive, and I would have scheduled them all over the country, all the time. So that was part of the schedule. When I come back, first thing I do is open the masjid and let it air out. Number one, it wasn't people coming there on a daily basis to pray, but we was up and running. Of course, Salatul Jummah and all those things, but we were right in the middle of having programs all over the United States of America. So when we came into D.C., the Islamic movement had become disenchanted with its own leadership and its ability, or lack thereof, to deal properly with its environment. The believers felt that their leadership was unable to cope effectively with success. Success brought arrogance and materialism from the leadership. Brotherhood was sacrificed for power, position, and status. External attacks from government agencies finished off a movement which prior to this period was ready to change the world. Whoever the self-inflicted wounds of arrogance and insensitivity were actually more harmful and weakening than the government attacks. In other words, we was harmful on ourselves. Discouragement. The feeling of discouragement set in with the followers, saw and realized that the leadership either had no intention or would be unable to lead the movement to the promised goal of an Islamic society within North America. Simultaneously, the Saudi forces were busy spending money to pacify Muslims and to put out the fire of revolutionary Islam that burned in the hearts of the believers. Several movement workers were made to feel unqualified and incompetent, and their energies were thus diverted to less productive endeavors. Anyway, that's what they did to the Muslims here. They made the Negro feel inadequate. By that time now there's a big, strong immigrant movement. And the immigrants are better organized than the Negroes. And the immigrants have, by that time they're building $5 and $10 million masajid, and now they're building $20 and $30 million masajid. They're building some big jokers. In the old days, $1 million masjid, of course, was rare. Or a masjid built from the ground up as a masjid was rare. The masajid in those days were maybe somebody would take a house and expand it. But the movement were controlled later on by ISNA and those groups. So if you raised $1 million for your group, raised $1 million for a masjid, right? But the masjid was going to cost you $1,300,000. They would tell you, we'll give you the extra $300,000 You just put the masjid in our name in case somebody goes back home, or there'll be no problem with the ownership. So pretty soon, most of the masajid in Americas was owned by ISNA, Islamic Society of North America. So if you're going to open it like now there's huge masajid all around America, and they're getting bigger, and they're getting bigger. It's getting out of hand. It's not getting out of hand. They fill them all up. Dar al-Hijra, when we go over there, they had 3 Jumas at Dar al-Hijra. A lot of places they have 2 Jumas, 3 Jumas, and the first one is full, the second is at 80%, and the last one could be at 75 or 65%. Right? You used to couldn't fill up one Juma. You would be happy to see all them rows. They have more rows in prayer at Dar al-Hijra, at least they used to, than they used to have at Salatul Juma. And that's all over America. Okay, the next of these was disunity. Strong disappointment caused the general body of Muslims activists to become suspicious and doubtful of all Islamic leadership. The air of mistrust hung over D.C. by 1989. That's when we came here. That's not when we first came to visit and give talks, but that's when we transferred here. Only a few held on to the hope of establishing Islam in North America. The general atmosphere, however, was one of disunity, mistrust between the organizations, leaders, and their respective followers, as well as from amongst individuals. In other words, if you look at D.C., when I came here in '89, they had started Dar al-Hijra, then they closed it down because they had to, they couldn't have it there because the building was not for a masjid, what they have, the library now. So D.C. had Masjid Muhammad. It was the central masjid in D.C. And all the people that came from masajid that had closed down, you got to remember, the trick in D.C. was that Islamic center down there. It looks beautiful and everything. But at one time, when it was opened in '57, it was the only masjid built from the ground up in the United States. You got to remember. It was dedicated by President Eisenhower. Yeah, the Islamic center down there, yeah. And the only people who used it was diplomats from the newly liberated Muslim countries, Egypt and, all of those places. Those Arabs used that masjid. The other Muslims used that. Then as years went by, Negroes started easing down there. Then they had a so-called takeover of the Islamic Center. What happened? The takeover was the Negroes and the revolutionaries have taken over the Islamic Center. That's what everybody thought. So then they went to all the African Americans and said, okay, y'all got the masjid for Islamic party. You can close that down and come on over here. The brothers we've taken over there. The remnants of Dar al-Islam movement, they close down and they go over there. After they got it all the masajid closed down, by the time I got here in '89, everybody was going to the masjid on New Jersey, was going to Masjid Muhammad, all African Americans. Then after that, they talking about they either went to the Islamic Center or they went to Masjid Muhammad. Most of the African Americans went to Masjid Muhammad, but they couldn't stand the khutbahs because in the Gulf War, '61, they were saying George Bush is an honorable man, and everybody here knew that George Bush is the one that's killing the Muslims over there, and the chief was saying he's an honorable man, and people held it against him for a while, even some up to now. But anyway, George Bush wasn't no honorable man, and we all knew that. Okay, so now what they did was all the African American centers that they had here, small houses. The house over on 8th Street was perfect like the houses that they used to have as a masjid. That's why we opened like that. It reminded everybody of the old days. That place used to be packed. We didn't know where everybody was going to be, but the place, the people was hanging out of the window, and the cars was parked all up and down the street and around the corner. And we don't know how they got in there. To this day, we don't know how they got in there. But we hooked it up. It had new heating and air conditioning, and, people liked it, So anyway, that was a functional center. Now remember now, everybody else then closed their center. And now they're over at Masjid Muhammad. And they're unhappy, oh my goodness. Half the Qutb's people are getting up. And then remember, this is still a transitional period. The Imam might know 2 or 3 ayats, and he repeats the same ayats all the time in prayer, and everybody is mad, or stuff like that. But remember, those were the stages that we had to go through, to get where we are now. Okay, now Masjid al-Islam. So, disunity, the strong disappointment caused by the general body of Muslim activists to become suspicious and doubtful of all Islamic leadership. The air of mistrust hung over D.C. for the year 1989, only to follow. A few held on to the hope of establishing Islam in North America. The general atmosphere, however, was one of disunity, mistrust between the organizations, leaders, and their respective followers, as well as from the one individual to the next. So we came in all this foolishness, and we opened the masjid around the corner. And people flocked in there. Okay, they flocked in there. We're not going to talk about their goals and hopes, but they was always up to something. It wasn't sad. But remember, I came from Oakland, and I already had the game when I got here. When I got here, I had traveled around the country 20 times over, the whole country, and I'd seen everything that had happened. That was the beauty about coming out of prison at a certain time, becoming an imam, and getting on the right mode, and traveling and getting the whole idea of Islam. See, an imam that was locked in their city, like if they had a masjid, if the imam from one of the masajid, the people from the chief, and he was in 820 Jones Street, that's down in Mississippi. He may only be familiar with what's going on in that town where the university is in Mississippi. I'll think of it in a minute. So we got a chance to get up on everybody and the level that they was on. And the way we survived is by us traveling and studying. We got so familiar with Islam, the Islamic movement, the tactics that they had tried on people. So if we come to a masjid and we just go to Jummah and certain things happen in the Jummah, we know that that person that started that problem was a government agent. Why? Because we've been all over the United States 30 or 40 times. And we've seen all of those things happen. That's why you cannot imagine the stuff they did here. Well, you can imagine, just look what happens around here. If I start a car, oh, it starts today, tomorrow it don't start. No problem, right? If this goes on, if that goes on, to other people, people stop after a month or two of that. They can't take it. It don't have nothing to do with us. Why? Because that's like it's so repetitive. You can plan for it, and you know that it's going to happen. But after a while, you gain more knowledge about the Islamic movement than the people that's trying to stop you. And the more they do stuff, the stronger and the smarter you get. Pretty soon, you can predict 98% of what they're going to do. Their repetitive behavior. Okay, let me speed up because I'm only on the first page here. Yeah, I mean, but okay. So we'll call that As-Sabiqun on the move. And the first state, masajid, schools, businesses, geographical integrity. So as we go through a period of revival, which we're in right now, we're in a period of revival. And it makes no difference what they're going to do, what they're thinking about, that we're in a period of revival. And they can't stop it. Why? Because they couldn't stop us. Hey, it's unbelievable. You get so used to punching with them, you slap them around, you trick them, you do whatever you want. That's what we do right now to Boss Man. Boss Man ain't doing nothing but setting himself up. You look at where they are and look at where we are. How does the world look at the United States of America? How does the world look at the different parts of the United States of America? How does the American people look at themselves? Is one great American body, or is different groups and movements and what have you? Can America survive as it is today? Will it survive as it is today? You never know. Okay, but we got a different job to do. Our job is not the old job of sitting by waiting for America to fall or trying to throw a little gasoline on it and set it on fire. No, our job is to rescue America. Yeah, see, your mission evolves. Your mission evolves. Our mission has evolved from the day we got here in 1989 to where we are now. Our mission has evolved. Okay, that's why for our classes and upcoming, we're going to use regular As-Sabiqun, so people will study them. You can study fiqh and all that a little bit later, study it on your own. But we're going to have things that we study to raise our level of understanding of where we are. See, we don't know where we are. We think we're at what it looks like. Oh, the building is falling down. Oh, the house is falling down. Oh, the masjid has chipped floors. That don't make no difference. If there's anybody else, they wouldn't be here. They'd have been gone a long time ago. Right? We're still here, grinning from ear to ear. Yeah, we're still here, grinning from ear to ear. And all the things that we need, we will acquire. If we need more funds, we're going to acquire them. So for 10 years or so, or more, it's more, we've been cruising. What do you do when you're cruising? You don't have your foot on the throttle and trying to go faster. You're just cruising. You let them burn themselves out. You let them make a fool out of themselves. You can tell what these people are going to do before they do it. Long time before. Why? Because of the experience. You got to remember, if you survive so long, you become sharper, right? Because remember, you're having more fights. And the people that have power that's trying to stop you, the only thing they have power to do is throw stuff in your way. right? To distract you, to mislead you, to make you feel like, oh man, it ain't worth it. Well, guess what? They only got so many tricks in their bag. Eventually, you evolve over them. And you get sharper than them. You got night goggles. You can see them moving around in the dark. They can't do nothing. After a while, you get immunity from the tricks of the system. That's what we have. We've gained a type of movement immunity. All the stuff that you read back in the 90s and the early 2000s and all that, it'll bring you up to par. A call for organized struggle. That must have been 95. Okay, don't get too stuck on, that was a long time ago, man. No, it was a long time ago. It was a long time ago for you. But in the movement process, you have to look at movements. When we were at the apex of those days, they also wanted us to study, which we did, study Ikhwan al-Muslimin, study you can tell a lot about literature. But what we realized was they want you to get froze in, let's say, Ikhwan al-Muslimin. Why? Because when the Ikhwan al-Muslimin develop, the system develops its system to target and to destroy Ikhwan al-Muslimin. So if you have Ikhwan al-Muslimin, the Muslim Brotherhood, as your model, as your highest epitome of Islamic movement, right? All they got to do is knock you out of the box. But you study the Ikhwan al-Muslimin, right? And you do your research to see not only what to do, but what to avoid. What to avoid. And as you do this, guess what? You become sharper than the system. Your ability to survive and thrive and exist in a hostile environment becomes higher than their ability to squash you. Because everything that they do to us every day, right now, every day, I don't even mention this stuff, that happens all day long, all the time. Then why is it not important? It's not important because we've left them behind. That's what As-Sabiqun do. You gotta remember, when we started As-Sabiqun, this was serious business. But As-Sabiqun is not to be a temporary As-Sabiqun. You always got to be out in front. You always leading the way, right? Yeah, you're always leading the way. So right now, everybody is hibernating or whatever they're doing. I don't really know all of what they're doing. But the Muslims, right? They're having Juma some places, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. Yeah,
right.
They actually are. You know, they're sending out emails. I'm on a couple of emails.
What's the percentage? Is the big shows they having?
The big shows are open. I know it's a fact. The big shows are open.
The big shows open. That means Dar al-Hijra and all of those.
Yeah.
And they're functioning.
Yeah, but you know, naturally, under limited circumstances, social distancing, got to be in early, out quick, all that stuff.
Okay, all right, okay. They could only keep that stuff up for so long and keep functioning as a masjid because they have a big overhead. They have a whole house full of employees, and they got to have big money. And even the Eids, a couple of Eids, when you knock over a Eid, man, I don't even want to mention the money to be puffing, falling out of the boxes. At Eid time. Okay, but that's all right. But now it affects us too, because remember, we haven't been able to go to these different places, and we don't have a certain, anyway. call for organized struggle. I'll just read a few things here. We resolve as a guiding principle and actions, you believe, obey Allah, obey the messenger and those charged with authority among you. If you differ in any amongst yourselves, refer to Allah, the messenger, if you do believe. And in the last day, if you believe in the last day, right? This is best and most suitable for final determination. Tiullah tiya Rasul wa ulil amr minkum, those in authority amongst you. This is As-Sabiqun's opening statement. This is our number one. By a statement of the following resolution, we declare our independence from man-made concepts. From man-made concepts. Atiullah, obey Allah. Atiya Rasul, obey the messenger. Wa ulil amr minkum, means people from amongst you. People haven't been respecting so-called African American leaders. Well, let's put it this way. We're still here. After all of this stuff, after all these fights, and they haven't had one of them. They haven't had one fight, not one fight. They start hollering, the boss man raise up his hand, stop, boss man, stop, don't worry about it. We ain't got, oh my goodness. No. And boss man be throwing stuff at us all day long, every day. There's never a time when he ain't doing something. And it has no effect on us. Because we've learned how to evolve. By the day-to-day contact, after 40-something years, almost 50, it don't bother you no more. Pretty soon, you evolve out in front of him. Because that's what As-Sabiqun do. At first, As-Sabiqun is just, they go out front. They challenge in the race, right? But they get farther and farther and farther out front. They don't get farther and farther behind. Right now, we're farther and farther out in front. Yes, the people have more people, but what are they doing? We have to ask whether the people have in Juma. We have to ask, right? If we had as many people as they have going to Juma right now, we don't want to say if. It's no telling what we would be doing. Okay, so let's speed up. We resolve to work with each other and to guard and support each other. We resolve to establish Islamic homes wherein Islamic etiquette, as outlined in the Quran and Hadith, on and on. We resolve to adopt an attitude of optimism in times of distress, as exemplified by the prophets alayhi salam and messengers. We resolve to maintain continuous struggles with our nafs, greed, envy, and arrogance. We resolve to exercise a regular program of self-improvement by incorporating new knowledge and practicing self-control and self-discipline. We are committed to developing ourselves physically, mentally, and Islamically. We resolve to work towards total economic independence. Okay, now, I want you to think about it. We've been under government lockdown for, let's say, several years. And we're still here. And we had no lockdown. Mean the government make sure you ain't getting no money coming in. You get $2-3, but that don't technically it don't count. And we're still here. And they've upped the taxes, and we ain't getting no money coming in. We're still here. We're still here. We're still on our property. So people have to understand, and we're African Americans. And it's hard for African Americans to meet their normal expenditure until people, the cab drivers and everybody started flooding in at Masjid Muhammad over there. They were having economic problems. But after the people's zillion cab drivers there, right? Most of the people are not African American anymore. The Sudanese Americans, they're this, that, and right? Pakistanis, right? You go in there at prayer time. I don't know how is it picked up over there again?
I'm not too up to date with the.
Okay, but anyway, we could have pride in ourselves. What we have done here and what we're doing here, nobody else has even come close. They're not even close. And we're getting ready to jump up and get rolling again, or we are in that process again. Nobody's even survived. There's no, go find a masjid with this attitude and this mentality anywhere. Just go find it. It'll tell you who we are. This is not a bragging right, but we have known this from the very beginning. When we chose the name As-Sabiqun, it was after years of thought and preparation. Planning is to a movement, business, or nation as sight is to a driver. It provides leadership with a window to the future. This window aids leadership in determining the direction in which the Jama'ah should proceed. Through planning, leaders attempt to crystallize and solidify their vision. Planning also enables the leader to better foresee upcoming events and prepare for them adequately. That means that everything that's happening or happened to American Muslims is a surprise to them. When Donald Trump comes sending them all back home and wouldn't let no new ones come in, they were shocked. This is America, Mr. President. Now, Biden then came back and opened it up a little. But none of it is a surprise to us. We never either depended on it. It's not that we didn't care, but now, here's what our job is. Our job is to approach the Muslims and help, whether they like it or not, in developing Islam in America and smoothing out the relationships between Islam and Americans, and finally to invite the American people of all races and colors to the hope and salvation of Islam. Okay. So I'm going to move toward a close. Promised Land, we'll do that a little bit later. Their mission to destroy and to slow down our movement. Never get too hung up on the speed at which you're traveling. It's more important the direction that you're traveling. Yeah, it's the direction you're traveling. If you're traveling in the right way, all you got to do is stay on that road. That's always other people, they get them, yeah, man, y'all didn't slow down. They didn't run everybody away, man. Suppose we did that. Sometimes, some years the people can't get in here hardly. Then for the last 10 years, you can't find nobody. But we still keep headed the way we're going. You see what I mean? This is important. Other people get, oh man, what did we do? Is it the bad leadership? Is it the who? Why we ain't, what they, what, like, no, it ain't no problem. You go through the criterion for you is the Quran and Sunnah and history, right? And you look through all of those to see, what have we been doing? What can we do better? What's the distance between where we are and where we're trying to go, right? What's the distance between that? It's not, they don't set the criterion for us. They don't set the criterion. They can send 1 million people over here and say, y'all doing this, y'all ain't doing that. Oh, sorry, we love you. You know, after you've been coming here for 200-300 days or years, then come with all of your help and aid. But right now, you know, they'll say anything. You can't pray in that masjid, it's over a graveyard. You don't believe the stuff they done said about Masjid al-Islam. The graveyard was up where the school was. The graveyard is right over there. The graveyard has never been here. And actually the Quran says the earth is a place of prayer. Yeah, they tore up the graveyards over there and moved the people, and then over there so everything that you could imagine they have said about Masjid al-Islam. Let me speed up a little bit. We'll use our history as a bridge to the future. Okay, I'll just say a few things. This global transformation, the world needs the Islamic movement, and we have to, if we want to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we have to continue that. And we're going through a period now where we will be into a period of revival. Yeah, we'll be revival. That means that we've been on our road all along. But now we're going through a period of revival. Not their revival, but our revival. That's what Islamic revival. See, during the earlier years, we was in a period of Iqamatul Deen. Groups from overseas and other places was in a level of Islamic revival. They had went through several periods of up and downs, and they were going through a period of Islamic revival, right? Not us. We were going through a period of Iqamatul Deen in America, establishing Islam. We went through that period. Now we're going through a period of Islamic revival, blending in with those revivalists all around the world. Because remember, revival is something that you go through after you've been beaten at or moved at, or you've been into a little depression, right? We couldn't have an Islamic revival then because that's the period of Iqamatul Deen. We're establishing Islam in America. Iqamatul Deen. Now, we've tussled with boss man. How have we done? We have done excellent. As a group, as a movement, we're still here. Where's anybody else? First thing you do, where's anybody else? That's the first question you ask. Are there any movements around? From the old days. Where's the Dar al-Islam movement? It's gone. Where's the Islamic Party? It's gone. Where's some of our friendlier Muslims that we're friendly with today? They're here, but you don't hear nothing from them. And when their leader left, he didn't leave anybody in charge to give authority to revive that movement, to guide it through changes. Now it's just drifting around. What is that movement doing? In each one of those movements, which was a good movement, in each place, in each city, well, that was going on in the past. Each place had broken up into 2, 3, or as many as 4 or 5 different groups in each city. There was never no anymore like in D.C., you got one center, like down on New Jersey or whatever that is, for that group. You had people over here, people over there, and all following the chief. And what other city? Every city. Wait a minute. What are y'all, who y'all following? We following the chief. Who are y'all following? Following the chief. Y'all following them individually? Yeah, we following them. We're not with them. We're not with those, but they following the chief too. You see what they did? They did it and they didn't have a hard time. They turned them people against each other. They thought they would do all the stuff they did it to them easy. Every Muslim group that they destroyed in America, they didn't have a tough time at it. But they ain't did it to us. We still running our mouth. We're still, don't worry about, well, you might not have the, we're here, right? We're here, we're alive. And we show ourselves when we get ready. Not them. They can't tell us nothing to do. All we know is if we got a car, if we got a house, they can knock a hole in the house or the store or whatever, and stuff will leak down, and you have to fix it every time they get up there and knock a hole in it. If you have a car, why do you think we got so many cars years ago? We got so many cars, so we said, well, we just load up. If this one don't start, then the other one will. That's why. And when it stops, we'll park one, and we'll do what we want. You can do what you want. They did it then, and they do it now. But it don't make no difference. It don't make no difference. That's what I'm saying. Technically, we've won this one. The other thing is, if we're planning and still heading for the ascendancy, which way they heading? Which way is Boss Man heading? Boss Man heading down fast. I mean, we have to try to help stop the degeneration. Boss Man has no upward mobility. The whole country has it don't know where it's going, and whatever happened, oh, they still mad at Trump. Oh, what happened? Oh, they not mad at Trump. Trump got everybody mad at Biden. Oh, what they supposed to do? Confusion. You can turn on the thing, the news, as soon as we leave here, and you're going to see it. Total confusion in the United States. And the rest of the world is aiding in the disintegration of the United States of America. China pulling this little plug, Russia pulling that little plug, and they all waving at each other. Look what we just did, right? They're doing it everywhere. And they're going to fix, what are you going to fix, Mr. Biden? You're not going to fix nothing. You're not going to fix nothing because what you did to everybody else is happening to you. You got to, they don't pay attention. The reason you do good because you want good to come back to you. That's not the only reason you do good, but it's a good one to get you started. You put out good, there's a chance of good coming back. But if you keep pushing out slavery, death, destruction, eventually you're going to look up and you busted. By what? History. You can't do it. They don't believe it. They're starting to believe it now. They're starting to believe it. You can see the commercials. There's the polar bears walking down the thing, right? When you turn on the TV, the 3 polar bears, they walking down, and they, hey man, where's some ice? We got to have some ice. There ain't no ice. And it ain't no ice like, it ain't a lot of ice that's melting. And I'm not saying it scares me, but it makes me a little uncomfortable to see all that ice melting, all that fresh water melting, right? Okay. But the world going to have to fix that. Me and you can't fix it. We're going to do what we can. But we have to appeal. Like right now, we're appealing to the world's people. We say, hold it. Boss man and messed everything up. Now, let's me and you fix it up. I mean, anybody that feels the way we do, let's get together and fix this up. Because boss man will not and cannot do it. He can't do it. It's like the old Roman empires, the Greeks, those people got hooked up in what they was doing. They could not change. Even they got all kind of books saying, we should have changed it. We should have turned left right up there, 3,000 years ago. We should have turned right, 600 years ago. Should have turned right. There's the sign. Turn right. 600 years ago, got people out there with right. You got to go. They didn't do it. They can't right now. Clean up the world. What world? We can get one more man. We can dump a few more barrels of sludge into that river before it's going to affect us, because we're going to float on a balloon out to Never Land or something. Or we're going to get so much money that it won't bother our island where we are. It's not true. But that's what they're saying to themselves. The shaitan always make that stuff look good, and it ain't working. It can't work. They've already extended the limit. Okay? Well, we're not going with that. So we just be uneducated Negroes that say, we ain't going with that. We ain't going to let them people, run us crazy. Okay. What time is it right now? 7:30. So it's past. But we'll keep on going. Yeah, you can go on and make your salat, inshallah. Yeah. Huh? No, we're right in the middle of a program, so you can go on and make your salat, and we'll, inshallah, yeah. Okay, I want to mention a few things. Is it getting cold in here? Or?
Yeah, temperature has dropped. I'll bump the drums down.
Okay, yeah, we could just pop it up a bit. I'm going to say a few more things. Systematize, satanic, I want to talk about stickability, bounceability, and tenacity. These are some of our favorite words. Stickability is the ability just to stick, to hold on. Okay, a lot of people during World War II, when they had a lot of ships were sunk, going over to Britain to take everything over there. The convoys, the German U-boats was sinking a lot of ships. And they kept finding older people were more survivors than young people on, the merchant marines. So they did a little study. They found that why is it that when we pick up passengers, of people that on these bombed out ships and, floating on stuff all over the ocean, why is it that we're picking up older people when younger people have more strength and more time in front of them? Why is it? So they did a study. What they found out was that older people, they had just had a depression. So older people had just come through the depression and other stuff. Maybe some had a divorce, this, that, and other. And they didn't know why they were out there ahead of the youngsters. What the researchers realized, the older people had more experience in life. And young people, when they torpedo hit their ship and they was out there for a couple hours, they had more strength, they had more to live for, but they had never had any confrontation with life, So they said, I'm tired, and they give up and slide on off into the ocean. The old people had realized, they didn't know it now. This is not consciously happened. I've been through the Depression. I've been through the 20s. I've been through the Dust Bowl. They didn't know all that consciously. All they knew was, if we hold on, a brighter day, a better day is coming. If I let go and go off, this is all over. It's finished. They had that in their gene. They don't call it gene. Their makeup from their past experience. All the young people were bigger, stronger, and healthier. They had more to look forward to. But they just learned something. They didn't learn it, but it was a part of their makeup. If we hold on, it's going to be better than letting go and sliding off into the water, dead, right? Why was the young people doing that and the older people had less strength? And all they did, they just locked. They did just hold on to that, right? They were just locked in. They did it before. They had been through it. They had experiences, divorces, poverty, all of these things, and they just held on. They didn't have no printout that said, you held on this, you held on that. It was in their genes, their makeup. They just held on. The young people had not faced anything. They were stronger, healthier, had more in front of them, more to look for. But they had never been through certain things before. When it happened, they just let go and slide on off into the water. This is a study that they did on their own people. So we developed this thing, 95% of ability is stickability. 95% of ability is the ability to just lock on and hold on. I don't care what you do. I don't care what you say. This, when you come to find me, this is where I'll be, locked right here. I'm just locked on. I don't care whether it's a piece of wood floating. I don't care whether it's a piece of the ship floated up and I'm hooked on. But whatever it is I can hold on to, I'm holding on to that. That's what they found in the older people, that they just held on. They didn't know what else to do. And it wasn't as conscious as people might think. It was unconscious, a subconscious reaction to the realities they was dealing with. The young people got hit by a torpedo and down they went with all of that strength and with all that ability. That's why we say 95% of ability is stickability. Just lock on. It don't make no difference what's going on around. Just lock on, right? You lock on, then you are alive, and you can move, you can make some steps. But if you give up, you get drowned by the environment. That's one of the things that our brothers did not get a chance to learn in the movement. Just hold on. When they hit us back in the 60s, bam, brothers start falling. They didn't get the idea till the rebellion is through. Everything is, oh man. All I had to do was hold on. All we had to do was hold on. Right, that's all you have to do is hold on. And then everything else is going to change. Now, those of us that held on, now where is everything going? Is it going in our favor against them, or are they what? They losing bad. They're losing, and it's hilarious, the things that they're doing to each other. And they won't stop. You can't stop them. You can't tell the truth. They just had the election the other day, and the man got inaugurated 2 weeks ago. You can't stop them from doing that stupid stuff. They can't stop. It's as though they are not conscious of what they're doing. And they don't care. You can see them. They don't. No, I don't care. It's not the United States. It's whatever me and our crew is, right? It's our way or the highway. It ain't going to be that way. It's just not going to be that way. Okay, we thank Allah. I'm telling you. All of this stuff is one big thanks to Allah. Because, see, everybody didn't make it. What are the numbers looks like? Who made it? Maybe one or two. We did. We already know that. Went through every change that America put out, every change that they got. Every one of them. And we're still here. You think we're not happy and thankful about that? And you don't think that we know that it was divine intervention and all other kind of stuff going on to have us here? Of course we know that. So what? We have less faith or more faith? We have a clear conscience on faith. We just locked in. We don't have to do nothing. See, what y'all gonna do about it? I hadn't thought about it. Just locked in, right? Ain't nothing. Don't worry about it. You held on? Yeah, I'm locked. Oh, fine. Just stay locked in. Don't you worry about a thing, right? This is one of the underlying meanings of all of these things that have been happening to us, with us, for us, and against us. Institution, participation. Okay. I'm not going to go through this horror show stuff. Institution-wide participation, nationwide participation. We'll knock that stuff over a little later. Okay. We'll close with thanking Allah, as we always do, for giving us the opportunity. It's not an opportunity. It's a privilege. It's a privilege to participate in this Islamic movement. It's also a privilege to be here. It's a privilege. Longevity is a serious privilege. Just think about the things that you didn't know a year ago, 5 years ago, 25 years ago. And think about the things that you know when you were very arrogant. That means young, right? I know everything. I'm the smartest nigga in the world. I do this, I do that, right? Think about what you know now and what you knew then. Basically nothing, right? You know, basically, I mean, you knew how to feed yourself and a few more little things. But other than that, you didn't know basically very little. And now here we are. This is an opportunity, I'll close with it. This is an opportunity to participate in Allah's creation at its time of need. There's never been a time in history where the human being has been more in need. It wasn't at the Roman civilization or the Greeks or World War II, that was important. It was important, but it wasn't the most important time. Because they were sinking ships every day and tons of oil and everything, and the oceans were still clean. Right? That was still clean. That was just 70 years ago, something like that. Good God Almighty, it was 75 years. It was a while ago. But I want you to think about where we are now and to be grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. To be grateful and thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for our opportunity to contribute to humanity's evolution and preservation. Oh, but that's the white man's job. Well, what is he doing? Preservation? What is he trying to preserve? He's trying to blow up everything he can. Anything he can get his hands on, he's going to squash it. He can't do it. He can't not do it. And we say, so why don't you just Historically, every people that got to a certain level, a certain stage, their common sense began to fly away. We have to help them. We have to help them, and we have to help them with the attitude of we're trying to help them become better human beings. We are not their judge. Allah is their judge. We're not there to say, shoot, you mean old white folks, you did this, you did that. I ain't nobody gonna help you. Shoot. We help you. All you do, as soon as you get 2 more breaths, you're gonna turn around and cut our throat. Well, that's what he does. That's his history, right? Okay, that's not our job. Our job is to help. Our job is to help, and to help right now. And we just want everybody to exercise patience, because we move at a certain pace don't mean other people are. Some people are right along with us. Some people might be a little ahead of us, but most people are behind. And most people have been fed so much garbage that it's amazing that they're still here and that they can feed themselves from the garbage that they've been fed by the system. So, we thank everybody very much. And are there any questions or comments about anything?
You were talking about some of the books and your time in part of Muhammad's community. A brother said, you going to get the Chief's tafsir, LOL? Like, I laugh out loud.
Right. Okay, I want to say something about Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad. I told everybody, if this was 10, 15 years ago when Imam was still alive and I was at the stage I am now, I would have went back and joined him. I would have went back and joined him. Here are the reasons. I was in the community and I know the people that was around him. Them niggas ain't no good. They wasn't no good. Look, the chief said it twice that I remember. He turned around. Did you ever hear about it?
I know as a fact I've seen at least one.
He turned around and said, y'all not with me? You with yourself? And look, but I was already gone out floating around in the world. But he needed, everything happens in his time. So evidently it wasn't a time. That's why we said, mashallah. It wasn't a time. He did a good job for what he did. He brought the people from the black man is God and the white man the devil to Islam. What the hell do people want him to do? Right? That's big. Okay, you got to remember, that's big. And you got to remember where he was too. He was like 10 or 15 years older than me. So he was a kid back in the 30s. Yeah, okay, he was a kid back in the 30s. He had been infected with all that stuff that they was teaching then. For him to come out of that, it's a miracle. And he brought everybody with him. Well, he brought a lot of people with him. And some came halfway, some came part of the way, some, okay. I don't have nothing but respect for Imam Muwattadeen Muhammad. Nothing but respect. The things that I would have done during that time are different at different times during that period. But if it was the last period when I spent time with him in Iran in 1997, right when that stuff was coming up, 1997, I talked to him about a lot of things when we was in Iran. I talked to him all day, when we was over there. But that period, it was nothing that I could do. I was from Oakland and here. I saw what everybody was doing here. I saw what they was doing in Oakland. I gave talks down in Texas, and I knew what so-and-so and them was doing. Once I was given an opportunity to invite Imam Wahiduddin Muhammad overseas, and we had, I was talking about selling books. So at one of their programs they had, this is back in the 90s, and it was in Ohio. It was probably Cincinnati. And his community was having it. I went over and we sold books, and I talked. I didn't talk to him. I talked to the brothers around him. The one that's good in Arabic, and I trusted him to pass the message. I said, I have an offer here from one of our countries overseas. They want to know whether Imam Muhammad wants a state visit or a personal visit. Personal visit is like what all of us get. But if he come with a state visit, they can have a limousine out front with flags on it, and you know what I mean, an entourage. So that was what my question was for him. So I gave it to, I don't want to mention his name, and I said, I'd like to talk to the chief, So I said, and if I can't, I would like for you to give him this and ask him these questions. And when the program was over, they was rushing the imam out. I said, what's this? He gave it back to me and said, get you later. And this was one of the honest ones, the one that was good, very good in Arabic. Anyway, so Imam Muhammad was, we benefited from his life. We benefited from his life, and that's all we can say. Or was there any more comments?
Yeah, brother asked,
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Well, I'm not taking any right now. I'll just have to wait on it. Yeah, I'm waiting. There's a whole history of the Negro in medicine in America. And the death rate, I don't particularly like. The death rate is 2.5 times that of white people, and sometimes 3 times. And we don't know about the targeting. They got targeted medicines. I mean, targeted things now. They can. This knocks over Negroes, and it brushes white folks back. Makes their hair straight. So but it kills Negroes. Okay. That specific type of thing is really dangerous with all these millions of people. That if somebody hit the right combination, they can knock over whole crews of people. And it's not much satisfaction either by them trying to harness preachers and all these other leaders in the community to say it's okay. Well, I'm not going to get out there and tell nobody what not to do, but I'm not going to be in a hurry to, if they want to get rid of me, they can just spray some on my bed thing down there, and I'll be gone. But I'm not going to, I'm not in no hurry because of the historical realities in the time we're living in. So, I'm just saying about me. I don't feel knowledgeable enough about it to advise other people on it. But for me, I'm not. I'll wait and see what happens. Yeah.
A comment did come through, and the brother said, so as long as we hold on and make effort, there is always hope. If you let go, there is no hope.
That's right. Right. If you let go, there's no hope. And that's what tasimu bihablillahi jamiyan. Hold on all together by the rope which Allah stretches out to you, and be not divided amongst yourself. Yeah, that's this thing of hope and is unbelievable. And people that are hopeless, you can tell. And people that have a certain life insistence and resistance, they insist on those things that they feel in their heart that are correct, and they resist all the other stuff that's wrong, and they feel in their fitra that it's wrong. Yes.
That's it. It's just the only other new stuff was just Oakland people. That's all. The Oakland system.
No, they have you got to remember. Sometime Allah send special tests for people. Okay, they might be the other stuff that I've passed, they're pretty good, I believe. They might be designed, Allah might have designed them for me. And I can feel that all the time. I could feel by the way they behave. They behave, those people, and anybody that's in Oakland that have any access to any history, those people I was told, don't help them niggas, they dumb, stupid niggas. That's what everybody said. I didn't hear nothing different from nobody in Oakland. They're dumb, stupid niggas. Don't give them a chance. So I said, no, I'm going to give them an opportunity, to be somebody, because everybody always telling them. I remember once when we was here, well, they were saying, both of them were saying, we're going to get a better education, so, people, those educated people, that was kind of light-skinned and different, they was telling them that they're, basically what they was telling them, you're dumb and stupid. Here what you do, you get a degree, and so they started both aligning themselves in classes and what have you. I told them both this. I said, and they read it. They read some of our stuff on leadership and management. We used to read all of them. And one of them, he said, I took this, he was taking a course in management and leadership at the college. He said, did your leader write this stuff right here? He said, yeah. He said, that man knows what he's talking about. He said, you don't need this class. That's what I was told this out of, Brother Mukhtar's mouth. He told me 4 or 5 times, because we have stuff on management, we have stuff on leadership and all that. He took a course on management, and he said, if y'all looked at some of the stuff, it has a few articles on management and stuff like that. He said, man, you don't need to be in this class. You need to listen to your leader. That's what he told me that they told him when he was going to Alameda County College, whatever it is. Okay. Now remember, wherever stage you are in life, you're not all the way there yet. You know what I mean? Okay. I look at them as a blessing. They are a blessing. They whatever I'm doing now, I couldn't have done it without them reminding me of something, If they physically attacked me, That's because I wouldn't have took that from nobody at a certain time. I just wouldn't have took it. If I would even saw them thinking about it, I would have moved on them because that's where I was. But in order to get where we are now, you got to remember, the places we are now are very, they deep, but there's spiritual dimensions in all of this now. And without those things of love, compassion, and forgiveness, this stage, this is the stage for that. They're the asset that are helping me. I had other assets along the way, but they, right now, and every time they call or every time they do, that's what they are. And I go on to say that everybody in Oakland and everywhere else should know that. That's what I'm telling all of them. That's what I'm telling all of them, that we're heading somewhere. Inshallah, we believe we have a feeling for our direction and destiny. Okay, now we're moving toward that at all times right now. Right now, we're moving toward that. The talk is related to that. If we're going to make a talk and we change the subject, if we leave the paperwork and we talk off whatever we do, it's all coming under certain type of being locked in, physically, spiritually, all kind of ways. That's the period we're in right now. That's the period we're in right now. And anybody that don't know that, they just have a problem. We don't have a problem. They have a problem. Okay? A lot of people, I'm telling you, man, we done had so many people sitting in the class and advising us, man, I wouldn't have took that, I would have this and that. Then they gone. They were sitting here all the time to give that information. And we're not taking their advice, we're taking Quranic advice. Yeah, we're not taking the Negroes' advice. If we'd have took up, if we would have dealt with people the way we did 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, even 20 years ago, right? We wouldn't be doing this now. We wouldn't be doing this. They would have been able to snag us and trap us. That's not the reason we didn't do it. The reason we don't bother with them is because we've evolved above and beyond them. Way above and way beyond. They look like just the way we treat we'll respond, but we'll respond trying to help them. We're trying to help them till the day we leave here. Because they need help. They need our help. Because nobody else, I'll just say this and I'll move on to another. I don't think other people are qualified. The people that I see them around, Abdul Malik, them, their family, they not. Every time I would try to pull Mukhtar and Khadijah this way, Abdul Malik was one to hold them back with him and work for him. And my goal was always to pull people up so that he don't have to be your employee forever, right? So I'm trying to pry him away from Abdul Malik and their family. And Abdul Malik's family is teaching them like subhuman-like, that you're not smart enough. Like they said right there in the meeting. We have to evolve to, get more classes. And I'm looking at him like, the white man don't have this stuff in his classes. He can't teach you this stuff. He don't have it. Look, I'm trying to tell you, and I'll close with this. He don't have it. Okay. We've already beaten everything they got in their thing. we're moving on to try to help the world. That's what it's all about. That's why we got all the money to fill out what is money like that. All the cutie pies, all the tenders, so we know what tenders and cutie pies. We don't sit up thinking, boy, I sure would like me a cutie pie. I don't have to do that. I'm too old, or not too old, but I mean, I could work up myself if I wanted to, but I'm just not interested, right? I'm not interested in them. I'm not interested in that. But if it was necessary to reconnect with somebody, I could perform reasonable. This is my belief. Okay, but I'm not thinking about that because that's not, Allah blessed me to have everything that was important and in a way and in the amount that was wholesome. And now it's fine. Okay, what I'm directed toward now is their suffering a serious deficit, blindness, and a void. That's void. Their whole life is void. It is empty. And people filling up with whatever they want them to fill up. The shaitan fill them up. Because if they were normal human beings, what was it when they attacked me at the masjid 3 years ago? Yeah, that was a couple of years ago at least. Yeah, it was it's gone past almost 3 years. Okay. That was criminal. It was strictly criminal. What happened? Okay. But I don't look at it as criminal. I look at it as that was a part of my evolution. When that happened, I knew that I had evolved. I knew because of that, I didn't evolve, because of what I did after that. And what other people wanted to do all around. Hey, man, you could hear some of it on tape, man. You could hear some of it. The people are responding like, we're going to go, well, no. And you could hear my voice. I'm very firm about it. Absolutely not. Okay, so all I can say is, alhamdulillah. I don't want to pretend like I'm a Swami or nothing like that. But I know I do know. I know what's been going on. I know what Allah been doing with me. I gotta have enough sense to get a feel. Let me say I know. I don't know, but I have a good feeling about all of this, because I could have been like everybody else. I got all of my so-called friends. Man, and they still don't get it. And they old as me. In fact, they older than me. And they don't get it. So, alhamdulillah. Are there any more questions or comments? Okay. Well, the last thing I'd like to say is, look, everybody, no matter what you think about the world, what do you think about me, or we need to unify in our perspective and our work. The people that are running things now are not even thinking about slowing down. They're not even thinking about cleaning up the water. They're not even thinking about the poor polar bears. They just stick them on the thing, and have them walking down the thing. And they ain't doing nothing. You know what I mean? To fix it. Okay, Allah put us in this heavenly place to bring it back to where it can be, and that's what we're going to try to do. So thank you very much. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم. Okay.